Hey guys, it's Mike, and I'm here to wrap up our little series on drawing body proportions. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to draw this male character in different views and in different angles. So I started off with drawing horizontal lines across the page, and each of these sections represents the length of his head. So this character is 7 heads tall, and you can see that he's the character we drew in our last video. And if you haven't seen it, I'll leave a link in the description so you guys can check it out. So the first view that we're going to do is the side view or the profile view. And I've actually gotten a lot of requests from you guys recently about doing a video tutorial on how to draw the head in profile view. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about it in this video, but I definitely have it on my list. So I'm going to be tackling that in the future. So stay tuned for that. So here I am finishing off the head in profile, and we're going to move on to drawing the torso and the rib cage, and it's sort of an interesting shape. So first I'm going to draw a little guideline so that we know where we're going. The bottom of the ribs, and the front of it I like to think of as 2 lines, one long and one short. So the top part is long and then the bottom part is shorter. 2 curves. And the back side is different, opposite. Top part is shorter and the bottom part is longer. Finish this off with the top part of his ribs. And directly under it, we'll draw his hips. And this is sort of our melted marshmallow shape, leaning slightly towards the left. And we'll just connect these 2 parts of the body. 2 lines for his waist. Now I'm going to introduce a new line for you guys. This line will help us to see how the leg connects to the hips. So that's how it looks like in the side view. And on the front side, here's what it looks like. Might be helpful to think of it as like he's wearing underwear or something. Kind of weird. And now I'm going to use my blue pencil. I'm going to just draw a vertical line just so I know where his center of balance is. Help me when I draw his legs. And now we'll start with the curve that we drew before, the new one. And we're going to draw his legs, starting with the front. And watch this. His thigh will be a big curve, and the lower leg will be a subtle curve. So big curve and subtle. Now on the back side, it'll be opposite. So it'll be subtle, and then a bigger curve for the part where his calf muscle is. And roughen his feet. Don't forget his butt. So now we'll move on to drawing his arms and a curve for his shoulder on top. And if you remember from our last video, a good landmark is for his elbow. It lines up with the bottom of his ribs. And we'll draw his forearms down, and that lines up with the bottom of his hips. So those are 2 really good guidelines or landmarks to remember. And I like to shade this in, his hips and his ribs, to help me remember that these parts of the body, like our skeleton, are solid shapes. So we have front view, we have side view, and now we're going to move on to drawing the 3/4 view from the front. So I'll start off with drawing his skull in this view, and lining up the center lines. Going to draw the features of his face more towards the left so that he's looking towards the left. And I'll draw on his hair. And now for his neck, on the back side, you can draw it just under his ear, and the front just on the other side of his chin. Maybe that's a little too big, so on the back side, I'll just shave it a little bit. Now we'll do his ribs, or his torso. So 2 lines, sloping downwards towards his shoulders, not as wide as the front view. And now the top of his ribs will be this line. I also like to think of it as his collarbone. So we'll have a guideline for the bottom of the ribs. And I'll watch these next 2 lines. curved lines. The left one will be more vertical, and on the back side it'll be more angled. And I'll draw some center lines so it can help us to see where these body parts are facing. And here I'm going to shade in this part so we can see that it's the side. Now directly under the ribs, we'll draw the hips. It's a similar shape to the front view. And now you guys in high school, you guys will have to correct me, but it sort of looks like a rounded rhombus, if I remember my geometry. And I'll shade in the side again. Now with my blue pencil, putting in his center of gravity, center of balance, and drawing in his legs, slightly angled on the second leg. Now for his thighs, remember that the top part of his thighs is going to be a little wider than the area by his knees. And as you draw his calf, don't forget to add the little curves for his calf muscle. And I'll quickly draw in his other leg. And here we have his legs for the 3/4 view facing forward. So now we can move on to drawing his arms. And remember, if it helps you, you can draw a circle for his shoulder to help you visualize that his arms rotate around his shoulder, around this circle. Now we'll draw his arms down towards those landmarks that we mentioned before. Elbow is at the bottom of the ribs. And wrist is in line with bottom of the hips. On the other side, I'm just going to use one line for his arm because the other line is behind his body. We'll bring it down to his wrists, make sure it lines up, and I'll rough in his hands. Here's our new lines where the leg connects to the hips, underwear lines. So front view, side view, 3/4 front, and now for the last view, this will be a little tricky. This will be 3/4 from the back. So I've drawn in the skull just like the 3/4 view in the front, and the next thing I do is draw in his ear, because the ear helps us to see that his head is turned away from us. So I'll draw it really close to the front of his face. And next I'm going to draw in his hair, and because it's the back view, there's going to be a lot of hair to see. So there's a lot of hair. Then we'll draw in his neck. The front of it is just right before the chin. And this next part's not necessary, but sometimes I like to shade in the bottom part of his jaw just to give it a little more dimension. And these next couple steps are going to be very similar, sort of exactly similar. Exactly similar. That's kind of weird. It's pretty much the same as the 3/4 front. So remember, vertical, slightly angled. And the center line on the back will be the spine. And we'll move on to drawing his hips. Put in the center line, the side line. 2 lines for his weights. As you can see, I've already roughed in his standing pose. Is exactly the same that I did for the previous one. Only this is from the back view. So I'm starting with his left leg since it's the leg that's closest to us. And then I can draw the leg behind it. Going to draw in the circle guideline to help us see his shoulder. And now from the circle, we'll draw in his upper arm, stopping at his elbow, and down to his wrists. Then all we have to do for this pose is finish off his other arm. And we are pretty much done. And not only does this wrap up this video with this view, but this wraps up our series on body proportions. So just want to thank you guys so much for watching. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And I think the next series that we're going to do is we're going to do some videos on probably poses. So we'll take what we learned here about drawing in the simplified anatomy style and these proportions, and I'll show you guys how to move these shapes around so that you can take your characters and begin to think of your own poses, action poses, or different kinds of things. So stay tuned for that, and hope this is really helpful. And so take it easy, guys. I'll see you guys next time.